Kevin, one of the biggest energy generators in Australia, oil and gas, Santos is, a powerhouse. If you got everything your way today that you want, could you solve the gas crisis in Australia immediately? Could you solve the electricity crisis in Australia immediately if you got everything that you wanted today?
Today. Not today I couldn't, or we couldn't.
How long would it take you?
Oh, look, I mean, the reality of the situation, I made a speech in Melbourne last week and I said we can't conjure up new gas. And what's effectively happened over the last decade, as gas resources have been used up and new projects have not been able to come forward and be developed and bring new supply into the market, that all the buffer, all the slack in the system has been used up. And so what you're seeing right now is some coal capacity going offline at short notice, renewables underperforming, and the combination of all of that plus cold weather has meant that these coal-fired power generators have come looking for that gas to buy off the spot market, taking that gas out of the market, and the 10% or so of the market that is the spot market is now bidding the price up, and they're paying very high prices. And there's nothing you can do to resolve that situation in terms of conjuring up new gas until we get the coal capacity restored.
OK, but you were a part of the Curtis Island development at Gladstone, right, where there was no gas reservation.
Yes.
Where international parity pricing was brought in for the first time for all of Australia's gas. So when we turn back to those decisions, were they mistakes? Would have Curtis Island actually gone ahead had it not been for those decisions?
Well, look, I can't say whether they've gone ahead or not because I wasn't there at the time.
Yeah, sure.
I could have a view on it, but I wouldn't want to guess at that. The reality is it did go ahead, though, and that was the rules by which those projects were developed. I heard the debate earlier on around reservation. For the record, I'm on record as supporting domestic gas reservation policy. Always have. I worked in Western Australia for years and it worked for us in Western Australia. But I would only support it prospectively.
Yeah, and that's because, Kevin, I mean, let's be honest, the other two big LNG exporters, they're already supplying to the domestic market, 10 to 15%. But whereas Santos, I blame the French, Santos has much more of a tight problem, don't you, in terms of what it would do?
Well, you're talking about one specific project. But
yeah.
Santos is the largest domestic gas supplier in Australia, and we have been now for a few years. In fact, in Western Australia, we supply 50% of the market there. We export no gas in Western Australia. So we're a dedicated domestic gas supplier there.
But when David Littleproud says, you fellas ride high in the saddle, you can see where the gas is. There is a little bit to be squeezed out there.
Well, look, I mean, you can drill a few extra wells here and there and get a little bit into the market, but it's band-aids to what is a much bigger structural problem. The problem here is we need new projects on. And when Gladstone was approved, when all the 3 projects in Gladstone were approved, there were a number of East Coast domestic gas projects in the pipeline. If you go back to the AAMO reports at the time, you'd see all of those projects. Narrabri was one. There was another one in New South Wales, which I can't remember the name of. And there was a few in Queensland as well. None of those projects have been developed. None of them have been developed.
Why not? Dan Walton is right behind Narrabri.
I hear that, but successive state and federal governments have just put red tape and green tape in place, which has made these projects impossible to get up.
And so that Narrabri project, that is for domestic use. We should point that out.
So we have acquired 100% equity in that project now. We've bought the other joint venture partners out. We own it 100%. We're progressing it. I don't think we're too far away from getting through all the red tape and green tape, but we have dedicated every single molecule of gas from that project to the domestic market. We hoped when we said that a few years ago that would inspire people to help us get the project approved. It doesn't seem to have done so. But once we get it approved, that will be 150 terajoules. That's about just short of 10% of the East Coast domestic market. New supply in the market. That will soften the blow. That will provide spare capacity, and that will bring down gas prices.